Welcome to another metric of the month, where we provide you with a short, bite-sized deep dive into a key financial metric that can help you grow your business more profitable. We'll cover what it is, why it matters, and how to use it. And today, let's jump into gross profit. Now, I assume you all know what revenue is. Gross profit is essentially nothing else than revenue minus cost of sales. Simple enough. But the key question here is, how do we define revenue? How do we define cost of sales? Revenue should be your net revenue, so after discounts, after refunds, etc. Cost of sales, cost of goods sold, depends a bit on your business model. In an agency model, it mainly compromises of your delivery team, so the people that are working on actual client deliveries. In an e-com setting, it is of course your product itself, but it's also your freight into the warehouse, it's your storage costs, etc. So there is a bit of a gray zone and some flexibility in how you define cost of sales in your particular business, but this is the 80-20 of it. Now, why it matters is actually the most important part for today, because more than anything else, gross profit shows you how scalable and how healthy your business is. If your gross profit is very low, it's very hard to scale, because each unit that you sell, whether that is a SEO project or another SKU on Amazon, if your gross profit is low, it only adds a little bit of extra margin for you to cover your overhead expenses and to add to your profitability. If your gross margin is very high, on the other hand, that gives a lot of space for expenses, profit, but also, arguably the most important, for your customer acquisition costs. Now, another thing why it really matters is it helps you to understand how your pricing is. If your gross profit is too low, possibly there could be two causes of that. One cause of that is that your pricing is too low. So perhaps your delivery is very efficient or your product is really good, but your pricing is too low. And of course, that would harm your gross margin, so your gross profit. On the other hand, if your pricing is in line with the market and your positioning, but your gross margin is still too low, then you might have an issue on the delivery side. Maybe if it's an e-com, maybe your product cost is too high, maybe your supply chain is inefficient, or if it's an agency, maybe your delivery is inefficient. In all cases, you really want to have a clear idea of what your target gross margin is for your particular business. And I'm a little bit reluctant to give an overall, like, this is the benchmark, because it really differs per company. Without knowing anything else, in general, you should be looking at between 50 to 70% gross margin. Now, we've seen cases where gross margin is 90%. We've seen businesses where gross margin is 20%, and both of those were still okay. So it is really dependent on your particular business. As a rule of thumb, if your gross margin is too low, lower than what either you think it should be or what your advisors tell you it could or should be, or what the benchmark is in your particular niche, you're going to run into problems. One is it's not scalable, because you don't have enough budget for your marketing and for your acquisition costs. Two, for you as the owner, if your gross profit is too low, your net income, and therefore your profit and your personal income, are going to be lower than it could or should be. In the off chance that it's too high, and we have seen that, there is a chance that you might be leaving growth and therefore money on the table. If, for example, you're overcharging, your pricing is too high, by lowering your pricing a little bit, you might be able to ramp up your volume quite a bit more, and therefore adding significantly more total gross profit. So fine-tuning, understanding where your gross profit should be and how you're going to optimize it for your particular business is a critical one. Again, in general, if your gross profit, your gross margin is too low, there's two key factors you can look at. One is your pricing. Is your pricing in line with your positioning and your market? Two, your delivery and your cost of sales. Is that efficient? Is that cost efficient? Is that appropriate for your pricing? There is, however, a third way, and that is if neither of those two are easy to adjust, then the third angle would be, can you expand your product or service line with another offer that is significantly higher gross margin? There could be a premium offering on top of it. That could be an upsell. That could be, for example, in the car rental industry, the classic one is the insurance. Is there something you can add to your offering that has a very high gross margin and therefore lifts up your overall gross margin?